Minutes before takeoff, the airport was buzzing with the usual chaos. Families rushing, flight announcements blaring, security lines crawling. Amid the crowd, a black pilot faced an unthinkable attack. Security officers singled him out, shouting accusations he didn't understand, shoving him aside as if he didn't belong. Every second felt heavier, the humiliation burning like fire in his chest. Yet just minutes later, the world would depend on him. While no one believed he could make a difference, he was about to step into a cockpit not as a victim but as a hero, an emergency pilot ready to save 312 lives, proving courage isn't defined by color, but by resolve. He had always dreamed of flying. From the moment he watched planes streak across the clear skies of his hometown, he knew the cockpit was where he belonged. Years of grueling training, countless exams, and endless hours in simulators had prepared him for this moment. Yet nothing could prepare him for what awaited on a busy Thursday morning at one of the nation's busiest airports. The terminal was alive with noise, rolling suitcases, distant chatter, flight announcements, and the hum of security scanners. He moved calmly through the crowd, uniform crisp, credentials in hand, heart steady, at least, he hoped. As he approached the gate, subtle glances and whispers trailed him. People hurried past, some overtly avoiding eye contact, others barely concealing smirks. He had learned to ignore such things over the years, but today it felt sharper, heavier, almost deliberate. And then it happened. Security officers, 2 of them, stepped forward without warning. They grabbed his arm, questioned him aggressively, their words dripping with suspicion. Every instinct screamed that this was wrong, that he had done nothing, yet the eyes of the terminal watched, unblinking. He felt every second stretch painfully, humiliation mixing with anger and disbelief. In those moments, the dreams of flying, the countless hours of preparation, the sacrifices he had made, they all seemed to collide. But beneath the tension, a quiet determination began to rise. He could not control the ignorance around him, the bias that clouded judgment, or the stares from strangers, but he could control himself. He took a deep breath, grounding himself in the years of training, in every flight he had successfully commanded, in every challenge he had overcome. The stakes were mounting, and little did anyone realize, the real test wasn't in the confrontation at the gate. It was in what was about to unfold miles above the earth, in the sky where lives hung in the balance. The confrontation at the gate left him shaken but resolute. As security officers reluctantly stepped back, murmurs rippled through the terminal. People whispered, some openly questioning why someone like him, well-dressed, professional, and clearly a pilot, was treated as if he were a threat. The humiliation burned, but he refused to let it break him. He knew his worth and he knew what he was capable of. Every glance, every doubtful eye, only fueled a quiet determination. Today, he would prove that courage and skill were stronger than prejudice. He moved toward the aircraft, each step echoing in the terminal like a drumbeat of anticipation. In the cockpit, he ran through pre-flight checks with the precision that had earned him a reputation in the industry. Outside, the airfield was bustling. Ground crew hustled, planes roared in the distance, and passengers hurried to their gates, unaware that disaster was silently approaching. An emergency alert flashed across the control tower's screens. One of the flights had encountered a critical mechanical failure, and an experienced hand was urgently needed. His mind sharpened instantly. Every protocol he had drilled, every emergency scenario he had rehearsed, surged to the forefront. But outside the cockpit, the world still seemed reluctant to believe in him. He overheard a supervisor muttering, "Are you sure he's ready? Maybe someone else should handle this." The sting of doubt rooted in bias he had faced all his life tightened in his chest. But fear was a luxury he couldn't afford. Lives depended on his focus, not on others' opinions. Minutes dragged as the emergency unfolded. Passengers on the distressed flight were panicking, unaware of the skilled hands preparing to guide them to safety. His training kicked in, calculating trajectories, adjusting speeds, coordinating with the tower, and envisioning the hundreds of lives aboard. Each decision carried weight, Every maneuver mattered, and the margin for error was microscopic. The airport that had doubted him just minutes ago was now counting on his expertise. In that moment he realized the cruel irony. Those who had attacked him, questioned him, humiliated him, had no idea that the very person they doubted was about to become the difference between catastrophe and survival. The injustice of their prejudice became fuel, not hindrance. Anger mingled with clarity. His eyes scanned instruments, then the skies beyond the runway, seeing not judgment or discrimination, but opportunity to rise above it all. Every second became a heartbeat of tension. The emergency flight was minutes from takeoff, the control tower's voice tense with urgency. He strapped in, adjusted his controls, and exhaled. This was the moment that mattered, the culmination of years of skill, sacrifice, and resilience. And in just moments, the world would witness not the attack at the airport, not the bias and humiliation, but the hero who refused to be defined by others' ignorance, a pilot who would save 312 lives, rewriting the narrative in real time above the clouds. The emergency flight roared down the runway, its engines vibrating like a heartbeat of impending danger. Inside the cockpit, he gripped the controls with unshakable focus. Every instrument, every gauge demanded absolute precision. Outside, the world could see only a plane lifting into the sky. But within those metal walls, lives hung by a thread, and the stakes had never been higher. A sudden alarm pierced the cabin. A critical hydraulic failure threatened to destabilize the aircraft. Instincts honed over years of relentless training kicked in. He calculated angles, adjusted thrust, and monitored every movement with meticulous care. Each breath was measured, every thought deliberate. Panic from the passengers seeped into the cabin, but he remained a steady anchor. He could feel the weight of 312 souls depending entirely on him. Memories of the humiliation at the airport flashed through his mind. The unjust accusations, the doubting eyes, the whispers of bias. Anger surged, sharp and fiery, but he transformed it into clarity. He wasn't just fighting for survival, he was defying every expectation, proving that prejudice could not touch the power of skill and determination. The plane trembled violently as turbulence and mechanical failure threatened to throw it off course. A split-second decision loomed. Follow the standard emergency protocol or trust his intuition, the instincts only a true pilot possessed. He chose the latter, maneuvering the aircraft with a precision that seemed impossible, threading it between clouded skies and looming disaster. Every passenger's scream, every shudder of the plane, became a pulse that matched his own heartbeat. Minutes stretched like hours, tension coiling tighter with every passing second. Then slowly, methodically, the aircraft stabilized. He guided it toward a makeshift emergency landing zone. The ground rushed to meet them, but his control never wavered. With a final deliberate touch, the plane descended safely, skidding to a stop with every tire screaming against the asphalt. Silence followed, a stunned, reverent silence. In the cockpit, sweat and exhaustion coated him, but triumph radiated stronger than fatigue. He had done it. 312 lives saved. Every passenger, every crew member, untouched by the disaster that had seemed inevitable. Outside, emergency teams rushed in, but he barely noticed them. In that moment, the world no longer saw the man they had attacked and doubted. They saw a hero, a master of his craft, someone whose courage and skill transcended prejudice, leaving an indelible mark on every life aboard that plane. The terminal, once a place of doubt and humiliation, now buzzed with awe and admiration. Passengers and crew spilled out of the aircraft, faces pale with shock and relief, eyes wide as the reality of what had just happened sank in. He stepped out of the cockpit, uniform rumpled, sweat-streaked, but every step radiated quiet strength. People who had doubted him, who had whispered and stared, now looked on with respect, some even with apologies they didn't know how to voice. The very same airport that had attempted to diminish him now witnessed the undeniable proof of his courage. News crews swarmed, cameras flashing, microphones thrust forward. His story, The unjust attack, the whispered biases, and the impossible rescue spread quickly, gripping the nation's attention. Headlines didn't just celebrate a hero, they highlighted the irony of prejudice being confronted with undeniable truth. His skill had not only saved lives but shattered assumptions. Yet amidst the recognition, he remained humble, aware that the real victory wasn't in the accolades but in the lives preserved, the families spared, the fear transformed into hope. As he walked through the terminal, he felt a quiet reflection settle in. Every challenge, every unjust accusation, every moment of doubt cast by others had led to this. He realized that courage is not the absence of fear or injustice, but the decision to rise above it. Prejudice might attempt to define a person, but it cannot dictate destiny. The emergency flight would be remembered not just for the lives saved, but for the proof that strength, resilience, and integrity transcend color, assumptions, and limitations. For every person who has ever been doubted, disrespected, or attacked simply because of who they are, this moment serves as a reminder. Your worth is not defined by others' biases. Your courage, skill, and resolve can rewrite expectations and create a legacy far greater than prejudice could ever imagine. If this story moved you, leave a like to honor the bravery, share it so more people witness courage overcoming injustice, and comment your thoughts. Have you ever faced doubt that fueled your strength?